Imagine this. The sun scorches the Syrian desert without mercy. Dust clouds swirl like demons in the air. 40,000 Muslim warriors, exhausted and thirsty, stare across the battlefield at an army of 200,000 Byzantine soldiers. These are elite troops in heavy armor, backed by catapults and endless ranks of spears. The wind howls as if foretelling death. Suddenly, a massive sandstorm erupts, blinding everyone and sowing panic. But from the chaos rises a thunderous cry, Allahu Akbar. Khalid ibn al-Walid, the man the Prophet called the Sword of Allah, charges forward. Sword in hand, one that has already broken 9 times in battle, he turns the tide. For 6 brutal days, the clash rages at Yarmuk, and Khalid emerges victorious. Undefeated once again. How could one man bring empires to their knees? This is his story, a saga of blood, brilliance, and unbreakable faith that will grip you in breathless action for the next 10 minutes. Khalid ibn al-Walid was born around 585 in Mecca, into a world ruled by tribes, idols, and endless feuds. As the son of a wealthy merchant from the powerful Quraysh clan, he grew up in luxury, but his true passion was war. As a boy, he learned to ride like the wind, fight like a lion, and lead like a king. The harsh Arabian desert forged him. Grueling rides through burning sands, duels over water sources, raids against rival clans. Khalid became a master of cavalry, fast, lethal, and unpredictable. But at first, he fought on the wrong side. When the Prophet Muhammad began to preach Islam, Khalid saw it as a threat to the old order he knew. He became a commander in the Meccan army and led them into the Battle of Uhud in 625. Here his military genius shone for the very first time. The Muslims were on the verge of victory until Khalid spotted a critical gap in their formation. With just 200 riders, he flanked them, charged from behind, and completely reversed the course of the battle. Thousands fell. Even the Prophet himself was wounded. Khalid was the hero of the pagans, but deep inside, a seed of doubt began to grow. The turning point came in 698 after a truce known as the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Khalid heard more about Muhammad's wisdom and justice. After a night of soul-searching, he made a life-altering decision and converted to Islam. He rode to Medina, knelt before the Prophet, and pledged his allegiance. Muhammad embraced him, saying, "Welcome, Khalid. You are the sword of Allah, and it will never be broken." From that moment, Khalid was transformed. He was no longer a mercenary fighting for clan or coin, but a warrior of God. His first test came quickly. The Battle of Muta in 629 against the Byzantines. 3,000 Muslims faced an army of 100,000. The situation was desperate. 3 Muslim commanders fell one after another. Seeing the impending disaster, Khalid took command. He fought so fiercely that he shattered 9 swords in close combat. But instead of a suicidal charge, he executed a masterful, organized retreat, saving the army from certain annihilation. When the news reached the Prophet, he wept with joy and declared, "Khalid has wielded the sword of Allah." Khalid's life became an unbroken chain of victories. Over 100 battles and duels, without a single defeat. After Muhammad's death in 632, chaos erupted across Arabia. Many tribes apostatized and false prophets rose up threatening to tear the new community apart. Caliph Abu Bakr sent Khalid to lead the armies in the Ridda Wars, or the Wars of Apostasy. His most critical battle was at Yamama against a false prophet named Musaylima the Liar. Khalid's 13,000 men faced 40,000 rebels. Musaylima had built formidable defenses, including barricades of thorns and chains. Khalid, ever the tactician, feigned an attack to lure them out from behind their fortifications, then struck with full force. He personally sought out and killed Musaylima in a savage duel, sword against sword until blood soaked the sand. With this victory, Arabia was united under Islam once more. Then came the Great Leap, the campaign to conquer the mighty Sassanid Empire in Iraq. At the Battle of Walaja in 633, Khalid's 15,000 soldiers faced 30,000 Persians. Here, he unleashed his tactical masterpiece, the double envelopment. He split his forces, sending a small unit forward to bait the enemy while the rest remained hidden. As the Persians charged into the trap, Khalid's hidden forces closed in from the flanks and rear. The trap snapped shut. Khalid himself rode into the center, his sword a whirlwind of destruction. Thousands of Persians died in the ensuing panic, many trampled by their own ranks. It was one of the most brilliant maneuvers in military history, a tactic that historians compare to Hannibal's legendary victory at Cannae. But perhaps Khalid's greatest feat of endurance was the Desert March of 634. He needed to move his army from Iraq to Syria, a 500-kilometer journey through scorching, waterless wilderness. His army nearly perished from thirst. In a moment of sheer desperation and ingenuity, Khalid ordered the sacrifice of several camels, using the water stored in their stomachs to save his men. He arrived in Syria just in time to surprise the Byzantine forces. At Ajnadain, he crushed a numerically superior force with lightning-fast strikes. Then came Damascus. During the siege, Khalid personally scaled the city walls with a small group of warriors, killed the sentries, and opened the gates from the inside. This all culminated at the Battle of Yarmuk in 636. It was 6 days of hellfire. The Byzantines, led by Emperor Heraclius' own brother, had everything: heavy infantry, skilled archers, and powerful catapults. Khalid commanded an army of somewhere between 20 and 40,000 men against an imperial force of 200,000. On the first day, the Byzantines charged, but Khalid's lines held firm. On the second day, he used the swirling sandstorm to his advantage, sending his cavalry to flank the enemy and cut their supply lines. The morale of the Muslim army was so high that even women and children fought, hurling stones at the enemy. Khalid masterfully rotated his troops to keep them fresh and feigned retreats to lure the Byzantines into devastating counterattacks. On the sixth and final day, he ordered the breakthrough. A final, decisive charge drove the exhausted and disorganized Byzantine army into the nearby river, where tens of thousands drowned or were cut down. Syria fell. The Byzantine Empire, a world power for centuries, reeled from the blow. Khalid had done the impossible. Later, he went on to conquer Palestine, where the city of Jerusalem surrendered peacefully. At the Battle of Firaz in 634, he defeated a combined alliance of Persians, Byzantines, and local Christian tribes, once again, while being heavily outnumbered. His final major victory was the capture of the city of Hira. So what was his secret? How did he remain undefeated against such overwhelming odds? It wasn't just raw strength, but pure genius. First, mobility over mass. Khalid perfected the use of light cavalry for lightning warfare. Instead of predictable frontal assaults, he flanked his enemies and hit their weakest spots. Move like the wind was his philosophy. At Yarmuk, he constantly rotated fresh troops into the fight while the enemy bogged down and grew exhausted. Second, deception and psychology. He masterfully faked retreats to lure his enemies into deadly traps. At Walaja, he hid troops in palm groves. He exploited the environment, using sandstorms, rivers, and the cover of night to his advantage. His enemies panicked because he was so unpredictable, merciful one day and ruthlessly efficient the next. Third, logistics and morale. His armies could march relentlessly, living off the land when necessary. He inspired his men by example, always fighting at the front and sharing the spoils of war fairly. He taught them, victory comes from Allah, but through our hard work. At Mu'tah, his tactical brilliance saved the army by maintaining formation during a retreat, preventing a panicked rout. Finally, adaptation. When faced with war elephants in other campaigns, his men were taught to tie ropes to their legs. Against heavily armored soldiers, he prioritized quick thrust over heavy, exhausting blows. He learned from every single fight and never repeated the same tactic twice. The reason he remained undefeated was perhaps because he was never arrogant. In 638, the new caliph, Umar, dismissed him from command. The reason wasn't failure, but a fear that the people were beginning to idolize Khalid more than they trusted in Allah. Khalid accepted the decision with humility, stating, "I fight for Allah, not for glory or for Umar." Khalid ibn al-Walid died peacefully in his bed in Homs in 642, famously lamenting that he wished he had fallen as a martyr on the battlefield. His legacy is monumental. He paved the way for the Islamic Golden Age by conquering two of the world's most powerful empires. The story of Khalid is truly inspiring. A man who rose from being an enemy of a faith to its greatest champion, who shattered empires and proved that with faith, genius, and unbreakable courage, you can conquer any odds. Thanks for watching. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more epic tales from history.